In this video, we're going to be talking about the Amos Bullet, which was my favourite board of 2023 that I got. It has changed downwinding for me, and I want to tell you why. So firstly, this is not a shape review. If you want to know about the design and the shape, Amos and Zane, who designed it together, this is a Zane Westwoods in collaboration with Amos Shapes Design, they've made a video. So go check out that video if you want to know more about the technical specs. I'm going to talk about what it's meant for me as a downwinder. So for some context, I am ocean downwinding almost all the time. I've only done 2 bay runs ever, and that's important to know why I've gone the length I have and the volume I have. The other context is I'm 95 kilos, I'm riding Axis foils, so everything that I talk about from now on will be in that context. So the dimensions I went with, 810 by 20 and a half at 145 litres. The reason I did that was I saw what was happening at Molokai to Oahu. People choosing small foils, wanting to get up in the flat on those small foils. And it was in particular Edo that was riding something like 130 litre 8-something board. And I went, there's something to this, you shouldn't be scared of length. Amos and I spoke about it and we just went, let's just get Zane's design that he was running at 7.6, and we just blew it up. Like normally you can narrow things off, but we just literally took that design and just went, and what did it become? It became this. The main reason I got this board was to size down foil. I was predominantly riding the 1201 for downwinding. I was riding this 95% of the time. I was getting it up pretty consistently, but still getting it up on my Sultan 7.6 some days was quite hard, especially the better the conditions got. On light wind days, I had no issues getting it up. But when it started to get around the 20 knots, 25 knots and above, I really struggled to catch those bigger bumps and actually get the 1201 up. So that was part of the reason to start to go longer. Just to illustrate a point, so before I got my Bullet, the smallest foil I'd ever paddled up was the 1201. I'd never gotten the 1121 up. And in a matter of 2 months, now I don't downwind this regularly, so that would be a lie if I said that. But I have paddled this up. I've been able to paddle up the 1001. Before that, the smallest I'd done was the 1201. So that's just illustrating the point. Now, the smallest I downwind now is pretty much the 1051, but I've still gotten this up and done a run on it. So, which was stressful, but nonetheless, I got it done. So I'm trying to explain that the bigger board means you can ride smaller foils. So one of the biggest questions that people have is, why would I choose the Bullet over the Sultan or vice versa? For me, it's very simple. The Bullet is designed to be run longer. It's got the scoop in the tail, it's got the right rocker line, you can run it more narrow, I think this design is optimized to go out to the larger lengths. So it's less of a question of which design do I want. The Sultan is still a fantastic downwind board. It is, to me, better suited to stacked bumps more than ocean, because the dimensions you might want to run it out to for ocean downwinding, it's less suitable than this design. However, the Sultan is far more diverse in the way that you can use it. It's very good for light wind winging and sup surfing. Whereas this shape, especially at these dimensions, terrible for those things. Like this board in this dimensions is only good for downwinding. There's no doubt about that. So the way I'm starting to look at downwind boards is you've got ocean boards or slash race boards, and then you've got sort of the crossover hybrids. And these big downwind boards are sort of like race boards, ocean boards, because the bumps you're trying to get up on are usually a bit more spread out. They're not as steep, and that's where going long and a bit more volume is going to make a huge difference to your downwinding. So when I run this board with the 1201, I can pop up so easily. There is zero stress, and I can pop up in no wind. I don't need big bumps. I can literally get up in nothing. And I've done that many times. But if I want to run, say, the 1121, that is now that's my safety foil. Whereas before that, it was the 1201 or the 1300. So I want to start with what are the trade-offs to running a board so big? The first would be pumping in super light wind. Obviously, if you're running a board this big, when you pump around, it's not going to be as easy as if you're running a smaller board with less volume, less weight. Having said that, Amos has designed this to be as light as possible. So it's also not the board you want to be banging around, because it's been designed specifically so that it is a lighter construction. So you will dent it more easily, but it's still very strong. He's not gone too far that you're then going to have quality control issues. The other trade-off to the volume that I got is the board's quite thick, and it took me a little while to adjust to my mast height. So I kept touching down, but I also was running, and I still do sometimes, I run too low just because the board's, almost 6 inches thick. And so you need to learn to ride higher on your mast to compensate for the board thickness. The other trade-off is obviously when you go this long, it's a lot harder to turn. I did recently go to a place where it's very steep bumps. We call it the Poor Man's Gorge. You would have seen some videos potentially, just to test how well I could turn it. And I was more than satisfied with how well I could turn it. Obviously, if I was on the Sultan, I'd be able to turn it much, much harder. But when you're talking about ocean downwinding, most of the time you're going for speed. You're not trying to be the craziest surfer. And it's a compromise I am very happy to make so that I can get up easily and go fast on smaller foils. So the benefits are very clear to me. I can get up much smaller foils than I would have otherwise been able to. I think the hull shape is maximized for getting board speed and accelerating as quickly as possible. You've got a really short window where you need to accelerate the board and get it up, and that's what this design is really good for. I'm getting bitten by mozzies. Ow. This board has given me so much confidence to do longer runs, to tackle smaller foils, to go out on super light wind days, because I can't blame the board. Like with a Sultan at that length and volume for my weight, I could occasionally blame the gear, whereas with this, in a lot of ways, I can only blame myself. And I've only had one recent run where I struggled to get up, and there was a multitude of factors at play. But for the last 3 months that I've had this, my downwinding enjoyment has increased dramatically. I finally cracked the sub 2 minute mark, and it was like 5 kilometers of sub 205s as well. So it's not like that was just a lucky kilometer. I'm now able to get up in far more difficult conditions, and this board has really changed my experience with downwinding. This is in my top 3 things that I got in 2023 easily. I just absolutely love this board. And for anyone who is curious, I am going to get a slightly smaller version, still 810 though. I'm just going to get an 810 by 19, and the reason we're doing that is we're testing to see how much the stability is going to change with that change in narrowness, because this, at this dimensions, is so stable. It is incredibly stable, so, which really surprised me. That's sort of all I wanted to say is I would get it in a whitewash if you live in a hot place like I do. Dimension wise, I just think people should stop being scared of going too long. My stance is about here on this board, and so I don't have a stupid amount of nose. It pumps great, it feels incredibly balanced, and I just think people message me all the time saying, oh, I don't want to go too long, and I just think you're looking at it wrong. What you're probably doing is going too short. If you want to do any lengths that are sort of over 7.5, 7.6, 7.8, I would head towards the Bullet, because it's better designed for specific downwinding, whereas if you want a board that is better at crossing over disciplines, definitely go for the Sultan. Downwinding, and that's all you're going to do, mainly, go on this. Obviously you can light wind on this, obviously, but the Sultan is better suited to crossover. But if you want to get up smaller foils, you want to get up easier on, say, the bigger foils, light wind winging, you want to start going fast and racing, this is the board to get. Holy shit, I love this board. This board has been life-changing for my downwinding. So, Happy New Year. Hope you guys have a great 2024. We've got a lot of exciting stuff planned. I've got another video coming this week as well, because I'm finally better. So I look forward to sharing that with you and all the fun stuff that we're going to do on foil this year. Thank you so much for your support for 2023, and have a great foiling 2024.